Thank you. Call the member for Wagga Wagga.
Speaker, my question is directed to the Minister for Corrections. What is the New South Wales Government doing to reduce reoffending and strengthen the parole system?
Thank you. Call the Minister for Corrections.
Tell us, Dave. Give everyone a mobile phone. Tell us the price, son.
I acknowledge the member for Bankstown's interjection, and I know why her electorate loves sitting weeks, because of the vacancy that progresses in your electorate. Madam Speaker, I thank the member for his question and certainly for his devotion to his electorate and certainly the representation that he gives the Riverina. He's been a fantastic parliamentary secretary and takes a great deal of interest in all things corrections. But, Madam Speaker, today is a very exciting day for the New South Wales Government because the Attorney-General, the Police Minister and I announced a $200 million major reform package. And you've already heard from the Attorney-General about the sweeping changes which we are making, but as part of the overall package, Madam Speaker, the Government is making changes to the parole system to enable stronger decision-making, smarter management, greater supervision of parolees, which will better protect our community and reduce reoffending. Madam Speaker, I have spoken about the Berejiklian's government holistic approach to recidivism in keeping our community safe while remaining tough on crime. The government makes no apologies for being tough on crime, but I would remind the House that those opposite saw the exponential growth in reoffending rates under the Keneally, Reece and Emma governments. And they were the governments, you may remember, that put I acknowledge the interjection. They were the governments that put Eddie Obeid in jail. They were the government that put Fung No in jail. They were the government that put Milton McCopless in jail. Looks like Ian McDonald's going to go. One more, ladies and gentlemen. They get a quorum. One more, and they'll have a branch meeting there, right there in Long Bay. But it falls under this government, Madam Speaker. It falls under this government, Madam Speaker, to curb the trend. To curb the trend. The Premier has made reducing reoffending in New South Wales one of...
Member for Rockdale will tell you what you're doing in a minute. And the door's very close.
The Premier has made reducing reoffending a top priority, Madam Speaker. This is a government that is serious about keeping our community safe. The answer to the long-term safety in our community is reducing reoffending. It means fewer victims. And thanks to the mess that those opposite gave us, it requires strong short-term powers. Madam Speaker, you only have to look down south over the border to see what's happening in Victoria at the moment to see that what we're doing will require is good policy. It provides, Madam Speaker...
Member for Rockdale.
Madam Speaker, you may have read recently that crime in New South Wales is at a 20-year low. Unlike those across the chamber who saw upward trends across multiple crime categories during their government, we remain tough on crime and we have seen the benefits. Madam Speaker, in my own electorate, crime rates have gone down across the quarter, with 16 out of 17 major crime categories fallen, and I give credit to the local area commander, Rob Critchlow, for that. Madam Speaker, the Attorney-General and the Minister for Police and I today announced policies that will complement this downward trend. There are three core sections to this parole reform, Madam Speaker. The first, ensuring stronger decision-making of our key agency, the State Parole Authority. Under these justice reforms, Madam Speaker, the State Parole Authority will consider a broad range of factors when deciding if an offender is to be released. These include disclosure of the victim's remains. That's the No Body, No Parole initiative, which will occur to those who have committed murder or manslaughter. Madam Speaker, the chances of parole will be greatly reduced if an offender has failed to disclose the remains of a victim. You may like to interrupt this on those opposite, but victims of murder deserve a little bit more respect. The families of murder victims deserve a little bit more respect than your cheap and nasty interjections. Madam Speaker, other factors will see whether there is intelligence to an offender's links to...
Member for Cessnock. Member for Cessnock.
Madam Speaker, other factors will be whether there is intelligence on an offender's links to or support of terrorist acts or violent extremism, or even if there has not been sentenced for a terrorism offence. And above all else, community safety will replace the public interest test. Madam Speaker, by including terrorism and intelligence as a mandatory consideration, the parole decision-making process will be strengthened and ensure that the parole authority turns its mind to the issues in every single case. It gives police and corrective services a clear mandate to bring relevant information to the authority's attention. Most importantly, Madam Speaker, we are relying on contributions from victims in the decision-making for any offender being considered for parole. Corrective Services Victim Register will notify victims of families or victims when an offender is up for parole, and victims have the opportunity to submit a statement to be considered during the State Parole Authority's decision-making process.
Member for Wagga Wagga. 2 minutes is granted. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, the second key change in parole is better management of parole breaches, which gives swift and certain sanctions which will be the most effective way of managing an offender's risk. Under these reforms, community correction officers will have clear authority to enforce and escalate sanctions for minor breaches of parole instead of taking no action. Madam Speaker, make no mistake, serious breaches will be reported to the State Parole Authority. The authority will have the power to immediately revoke parole when it has concerns about community safety. This can occur even when there is no breach. Madam Speaker, finally, the third section of this major parole reform package is increased supervision. Supervision is the best way of reducing reoffending, Madam Speaker, and the reduction in reoffending means a further reduction in crime. Less crime means fewer victims, and we are doing this by expanding corrective services capability with around 200 extra frontline community correction staff specially trained in using new techniques that will build on the one-on-one work officers do with offenders plus support staff. Madam Speaker, with most parolees are currently supervised by corrective services, now it will be a requirement for all offenders. These reforms will give greater flexibility to the authority to reconsider parole for suitable candidates. There will be more offenders receiving supervised reintegration, and we believe this will be effective in reducing reoffending. Madam Speaker, the State Parole Authority will also have new options in transition a small number of low offenders to electronically monitored home detention before the end of their non-parole period. These offenders will be under strict supervision and be accountable to exterior rehabilitation programs. By upping supervision, Madam Speaker, the government is remaining vigilant and its commitment to priority to put downward pressure on reoffending. Madam Speaker, this is a government that puts safety first. This package will continue the Berejiklian and Barilaro's trend in reducing crime. And unlike those opposite, this government has remained tough on crime and successfully put community safety at the forefront of the agenda. With these tough and smarter reforms, we are ensuring the state will be safer for years to come.